Okay, good, thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. We haven't met crowd capacity here, I see, this evening. So we do have a quorum. I now call the meeting of the North Miami Special Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, if we may. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Madam Secretary, may we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Chairman Ernst?
Present.
Commissioner Blemire is excused this evening. Commissioner McDermott?
Mr. McDermott?
Present.
Commissioner Each?
Present.
Commissioner Medina? He did say he was coming, so he's probably running late.
Okay.
Commissioner Edward Clark?
Present.
Commissioner Bowe may or may not be here.
Okay.
And Commissioner Besson?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, everyone, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you. Approval of minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Mr. McDermott moves for approval, seconded by Mr. Each. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes have been approved. I'll go ahead and sign them for you, Stephanie. Send them your way. It was Mr. McDermott, seconded by Mr. Each. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I thought I didn't mention that plural when I said approval of the minutes for both June 7th and June 9th. Yes, ma'am. Any communications from staff, council, anyone?
Just real brief. We do plan to have an update comprehensive plan presentation where we are in the process. Will be at your 9/6 meeting. So just keep that in mind as we are scheduling and talking, that our consultant will be doing a brief overview of where we are in the comp plan and their efforts at community outreach, what they're doing, and where they are in the development and what they've discovered.
When's that going to be?
9/6.
9/6.
That's it, sir.
All right, thank you. Any continued public hearings? There are none. And so the public hearing portion will set. Mr. Held, if you could kindly go over
procedure.
what we need to the procedures for quasi-judicial.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
presentations.
there are three types of items on tonight's agenda. There are comprehensive plan amendments, there are zoning map amendments, and there's a conditional use application, conditional use permit application. So the ones that are quasi-judicial will be the zoning map amendments and the conditional use permit application. However, if we combine the, there also is a text amendment, I'm sorry. So the text amendment would not, the first item would not be quasi-judicial.
Right.
The comprehensive plan amendment is not. The zoning map amendment is, and the conditional use permit application is. And if we combine the comprehensive plan amendments and the zoning map amendments, then we treat them, we hold, like we did previously, hold the public hearing combined, and then vote separately on the two items. That will help move this along
All right,
tonight.
if everyone's in agreement with that?
In that case, you would do your
Same procedure.
disclosures before the combined hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you'd be so
So-
kind to remind me of that, sir, before we move on to each one of those, because it does
Happy
start
to
to get
help.
lost in the,
Okay, so on the procedures, these rules apply to the applications on specific parcels of land, and as mentioned, it would be the zoning map amendments and the conditional use permit applications. The commission will sit like a court, hence the term quasi-judicial, reviewing the facts presented at the hearing, applying the adopted rules as explained by staff in the staff report and verbally. Commission members can make site visits but must disclose the evidence upon which they intend to rely from that visit. Commission members will disclose at the beginning of the hearing whether they have had communications with individuals on behalf of the applicant or otherwise, including who the communication was with and what the topic of discussion was. All persons intending to speak to the Commission on the quasi-judicial items will be sworn by the clerk. Staff will make a presentation and the Commission may ask questions. The applicant will make a presentation including expert witnesses, if any, and then the Commission may ask questions. When the public hearing is open, the public can make comments on the application, limited to 2 minutes each. Citizen testimony must be fact-based, not opinion. The Commission will then deliberate based upon the evidence presented. The Commission's decision must be based upon competent substantial evidence, meaning based on the record, staff presentations, expert presentations, and fact-based comments by citizens according to the standards for approval set forth in the City Code. The Commission may then approve, deny, or continue an item. While staff previously read into the record emailed comments, we have concluded this is improper in quasi-judicial matters, as the person sending the email is not sworn and there is no opportunity for cross-examination. Written comments provided before the meeting are made part of the record and were made available for a review by commissioners. Lastly, which shouldn't be a problem tonight, we ask each of you to treat this proceeding with respect and/or decorum. No calling out, interrupting speakers, or disrupting the proceeding. Please give this proceeding the same dignity as if you were in court. Disruptions are prohibited and enforceable pursuant to the City Code. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So the first item up tonight, PC 1749. I'll go ahead and read this into the record. PC 1749, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, amending Volume 1, Goals, Objectives, and Policies of the City of North Miami 2036 Comprehensive Plan, specifically by adding a new property rights element in accordance with Section 163.3177 Florida Statutes 2021 and Article 3 entitled Development Review, Division 3, Sections 3-302, Sections 3-1104 through 3-1107, Sections 3-1109, and Sections 3-1110 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations. May we have staff report, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission members. For the record, Debbie Love, City Planner, Community Planning and Development. The item before you is The item before you is a requirement of Florida statute. In 2021, they amended Florida statute to now require that every community have a property rights element added to their comprehensive plan. We can't move forward any comprehensive plan amendments that are large scale until this is completed. So while we passed the pools, that was approved, the combination of the pools, because that's a large scale amendment, we have to submit this to them along, and they will review it simultaneously. So that's their way of making sure communities get this done. It really is the Bert Harris Act that was in place for many, many years actually does have a property rights section. It really does focus primarily on protecting private property rights against takings. Exactions are another issue altogether, but for the takings, it's the Bert Harris Act, and I know we've all talked about that at one time or another. Well, this slightly modifies it to emphasize, even though there is already property rights protection under the U.S. Constitution, Florida legislative wanted to make sure that that was re-emphasized. There's a model ordinance that Thousand Friends of Florida put together. There's also it's straight up right out of Florida statute. Deo said, look, you can either you have to create a separate element, and you can just cut and paste that right from there, right into your element. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's what we did. That's language straight out of Florida statute, where it speaks to just the protection and that any decision-making considers private property rights when governments are making decisions. So with that in mind, the last point on the screen, we won't require we don't believe we're gonna require any sort of LDR amendments, because this really just protects private property rights. Very small, as you saw the ordinance, very short, very sweet, one goal, one objective, and a couple of policies to go along with it, and that's it. Let's see, where am I? Okay, I do this every time, go backwards. So after tonight, it will be appearing before the August 30th City Council agenda. That's their first agenda back. It's tentative because the city manager is considering adding an additional meeting because we have at least 10 items in CP&D alone. So they're talking about, because they all have to be on for one reason or the other. So it's a tentative date. It will then get transmitted to DAO. They'll review that along with the pool combination, and then it will come back for second reading. We don't know what those dates are at this point, and then it's actually would be effective 30 days, not 10 days. That's it, sir.
Thank you very much, staff. We'll have a discussion. Let me open and close the public hearing real quick for the record. Public hearing is now open. The chair does not recognize anyone coming forth to speak on this, and I'll ask the secretary, did you receive any written comments regarding this item from anyone? In the
No
public?
comments were received.
Okay, so nothing needs to be read in the record. I'm going to therefore go ahead and close the public hearing section. Public hearing for this item is now closed, and we'll move on to commission discussion. It seems it's pretty cut and dry, unless someone else has a question about it. My only one would be, could you give me just a quick example of what might, would this come into effect? If we've had anything in the past, or would you see in the future that this would have to be adhered to, or someone would bring
Not
this up?
really, because it's already the same thing we go through now. With the U.S. Constitution protects private property rights. There are case law in place relative to exactions. It's eminent domain, and the city certainly isn't interested in doing any eminent domain work, but that is also a consideration. And I believe your city attorney, your board attorney would like to say something.
So a simple example that I thought of would relate to policy 13.1.3 about the right of a property owner to privacy and to exclude others from property. That's the simple act of allowing a fence or not. If the city were to say you cannot fence your property at all, rather than saying you can put your fence here or there, that would be an example of a private property right that we're recognizing, that the act of preventing somebody from fencing the property would be inconsistent with.
Right. Unless, of course, that fencing area, North Miami has a section in between properties that's a part of the city, and so I know that my neighbor's fence goes up to that line, and if I were not recognizing his fence, if I wanted to put up a fence, there would be a 1 foot gap in between that. That's kind of like a city right of way.
Right.
So nobody can argue over that piece of property in between.
That's correct.
All right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Any questions or comments from any?
I move to
anyone?
approve.
Okay, Mr. McDermott has made a motion to approve the item. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And Commissioner Reach has seconded. I think we'll just go ahead and take a voice vote on this, unless, would you like to have a roll call, staff? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None, so the motion moves. Thank you very
Which one
much.
we combine. 1750 and
And the
Just-
next item,
Just remember, the next two items, we're combining them.
yes, right. So items, if you like, I'll read both of them at the same time, or, okay? And then we'll ask for disclosure prior to, or after the reading and before staff presentation. So the next item is PC 1750 and PC 1751. 1750, an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending volume 1, goals, objectives, and policies of the city of North Miami 2036 comprehensive plan, specifically by amending the official 2036 future land use map to extend southward and eastward the boundary of the special development and transit-oriented development, better known as STOD, overlay district by 3 parcels of real property totaling approximately 9.86 acres in size, located at 1890 Northeast 146th Street, the folio number of 06-2221-006-0100, comma, that's at 2000 Northeast 146, and also the property at 2000 Northeast 146th Street with folio number 06-2221-005 and 0-0010, and the next property 14401 Northeast 20th Lane. That is a folio number 06-2221-005-0020 to encourage compact mixed-use transit-oriented development in accordance with section 66.041 parentheses C parentheses 3 parentheses C Florida Statutes 2021 and sections 3-1002 comma 3-1003 comma 3-1005 through 3-1007 and section 3-302 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations, declaring this zoning map amendment to be consistent with the city comprehensive plan, further authorizing the city manager to do all things necessary to effectuate the zoning map amendment, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and for an effective date. Next item that I'll read, next ordinance that goes hand in hand with this, will be PC 17-51. This is an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations, at Article 1 entitled General Provisions, specifically at section 1-106 entitled Official Zoning Map, to extend southward and eastward the boundary of the special development and transit-oriented development, better known as SDTOD, overlay district by 3 parcels of real property, totaling approximately 9.86 acres in size, located at 1890 Northeast 146th Street. The folio numbers 06-2221-006-0100, comma, and then the next property 2000 Northeast 146th Street, folio number 06-2221-005-001, comma, and the 14401 Northeast 20th Lane with the folio number 06-221-005-002 to encourage compact mixed-use transit-oriented development in accordance with section 166.0141 parentheses 3 parentheses C Florida Statutes 2021 and sections 3-1002, 3-1003, 3-1005 through 3-1007, and Section 3-302 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations, declaring this zoning map amendment to be consistent with the City Comprehensive Plan, further authorizing the city manager to do all things necessary to effectuate the zoning map amendment, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codifications, and for effective date. The items have been read in there, and at this point, I'm asking for commission members to make any disclosures under section 2-391 of the city code. Should there be anyone who's had any conversations with this item with anyone in the public or any of the interested parties, please go ahead and disclose that at this point. And Mr. Edwards, no.
No.
Mr. McDermott,
No.
Mr. Ernst, no. Commissioner Each?
No.
No. Commissioner Besson? No. Very good.
Okay, sir.
Now, this is quasi-judicial. We need to go ahead and swear in those speaking on this item. But that will just be staff and another member of the audience. Go ahead, Madam Secretary.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So noted. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Staff, may we go ahead and have your report, please?
Yes, sir. Again, for the record, Debbie Love, City Planner, Community Planning and Development. The items that you read before you amends the future land use map and amends the zoning map to extend the SDTOD over additional parcels of land, 3 parcels of land. The applicant's agent is here in case you have any questions that I may not be able to answer. I believe that's correct, right? All right. So let's take a look at what we have going on here. All right. So, as you can see, this outlines the 3 different parcels of land that are incorporated into this particular boundary amendment. It totals a little less than 10 acres, and currently it has industrial, just all industrial, all the properties are industrial. Height is limited to 55 feet. They can only do industrial uses and some very limited retail type of uses, but it's very limited. And by extending the SDTOD, they'll have more opportunities to do additional retail and residential. The residential they can do, however, they will need a conditional use permit for any, so in the future, when they come back, in order to implement this, they'll have to request a conditional use permit to do anything other than just retail use, right? So if they want to do a mixed-use project, which is what we would require, they'll have to get a conditional use permit. But that would also, when extending this over, it will allow the structures to go to 250 feet. And as you know, that's the higher density of 150 dwelling units per acre.
How many feet there?
200 feet.
200?
Yes, sir. And, my goodness gracious, I keep doing this backwards. So again, this is tentatively going before City Council on the 30th, and then they'll schedule it for second reading. We're not quite sure yet when it would be on second reading, but we anticipate it to be sometime in September, probably the last meeting in September, but because the 8:30 meeting is a little bit in flux when that would occur, that may impact the when it will appear for second reading on City Council agenda. And then it becomes effective, because it has a comprehensive plan feature to it, it becomes effective 30 days. That's the end of my presentation for that. This is just the companion. Same thing, except what it's just going to change the zoning map to extend the SDTOD.
Right.
So
in
instead
reference
of-
to, you were referencing the second.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So instead of going through that, it's just the same
All right.
for the zoning map change.
All right. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing so we can recognize the speaker who's coming before us to represent the developer, I take it, or the
Yeah,
public property.
Good evening. My name is
Just-
Mike Pizzi, and I actually have an office at, good to see you all. Last time I saw you was at the Desert Street naming. I have my name is Mike Pizzi. I'm an in-house attorney with the Deserts. It's one of the things I do. I work for them in-house, and I actually have an office at Desertland Park, which is 14401 Northeast 20th Lane, and I've met most people from the city there, and I've been with them for, oh my God, almost 7 or 8 years now.
That's the address you want to put into the record, your office?
Yeah, I'm gonna use my Desert office, 14401 Northeast 20th Lane, Michael Pizzi, Esquire.
Very good. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, so just, the city really had and it's really great to be here. The city really had a great idea commencing in 2003, and that is that to alleviate the nightmare of traffic congestion with urban sprawl, one of the deaths of quality of life has been urban sprawl. So in order to alleviate traffic congestion caused by urban sprawl, people having to get in their car and drive, 5 miles to get to work, or drive from their house to get to work, or get to entertainment venues. And in order to provide housing options for people, everyone from the county mayor to the mayor and commission in this great city, and to the president, and has said that obviously housing, there's kind of a housing crisis. You can't find any place to live in the city these days. So there are two problems. One, there's an enormous traffic jam problem. Everybody has to drive somewhere because there's traffic, because we don't have mixed-use developments. And two, obviously, it would be an understatement to say that there's a really serious lack of housing. People can't find a place to live at any price. So what the city did is they did something really great. They did this special district, which pretty much says that the city has a lot of these, in the M1 industrial district, they have these whole block-long lots. So the city in the M1 district in North Miami has a lot of block-long lots zoned industrial in M1 that are really limited in what they could do. They really can't do mixed use to alleviate traffic, and they really can't do anything to help the city with housing, even if the lots are vacant, because they're in the M1 industrial district and it's not allowed. So the city had a great idea, and I want to commend the mayor and commission and the planning council and your excellent staff. What they said was, we're going to provide a special overlay district, which essentially says, if you're in this district, in the M1 industrial district, you could do mixed use, including employment, mixed use housing, where people can live, work, and play in the same place. So the city created this special district which said that if you're in this overlay, what it says is that in the M1 industrial area, which is really limited in terms of what you could do to help the city with your needs, if you're in that area and you're in this special district, you could do mixed use and allow people to live, work, and play, and that'll alleviate traffic congestion and help with housing issues. And there was a lot of demand for it. It was a great success. For some reason, inadvertently, I guess the largest available vacant tract in M1 is this parcel, and somehow it was left out. And I think I talking to the staff, a lot of people thought it was in it. We actually thought a lot of people thought that this was in it because it's the largest available tract that's designed to alleviate the problem. So when the map was drawn for the district, the tract that best serves this purpose, it's right off Biscayne, it's within walking distance of Biscayne Boulevard, it's right on the railroad track, it's right there. So the one parcel that had the best opportunity to help the city and meet these goals, I think was left out of the map when it was drawn. And if you look at, I think staff will show you, if you look at the other properties, the other 17 properties that are in it, they all actually engulf and surround this property. In fact, I was talking to Tanya Wilson, your old person. I said, this is in it, right? I mean, the whole district was drawn up for this property, for M1. And she said, you know what? I just looked at the map, Mr. Pizzi, and in your office there, if you're standing in front of Desertland Park, your left foot is in the district, and your right foot on 144th and Northeast 19th and 2 inches is out of the district. And what's really good about this, and I'll tell you what it is this, Because they're not here tonight with the specific application, they want to build this mixed use and these units or whatever it is, this really creates an opportunity to work with the city and come back with a mixed-use development, housing, retail, a job creator. This, because we don't have a specific application tonight and we're just changing the zoning, this gives the city an opportunity, this gives the Desert family a chance to work with your city and come back in front of the planning council with a specific mixed-use development that hopefully fills some of your needs in the housing area and employment and that type of thing. So, as Ms. Love pointed out, when and if they come back with the mixed-use development, they could work with the city on that, and they'll have to come back again with the specific development. This just gives them an opportunity to do things that are great for the city and great for everybody, and then come back with the specific application. And in fact, the other day, I can't tell you how many times a lot of even the city officials will say, you know what, you guys could do this on the vacant lot here. You guys could maybe do some mixed-use housing here. Maybe you could do this. This will create jobs and all that. So this simply, it meets the city's goals, and it helps, it does what it was designed to do, and it provides an opportunity to work with the city and fulfill the original goals of this district. So when the city comes back and says, you know what, we have an idea to do this type of project or this type of mixed-use development, now they have the opportunity to actually do it because we'll be included in the district. So I would ask you, tell you, it's a great honor to see all of you. I want to thank your staff. They do an amazing job, and I want to thank you. And I hope you'll support this, so we can move this forward to the commission. And if that passes, at some later date, hopefully we'll be able to come back with some mixed-use development that does things that are desperately needed. And thank you. And I'm here to answer any questions. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzi. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on everything, but remain at the podium, and we'll go ahead and discuss further with you if there's
Sure.
any questions from the
God bless you, by the way.
commissioners. All right, so the public hearing is now closed. I now open the commission to discussion, and anyone wishing to speak to Mr. Pizzi or have any questions to Mr. Pizzi? Go ahead.
I guess my first
Mr.
question
Mr. Edwards,
would be,
Mr. Clark, rather.
what is the commitment to your employer to actually move forward with this project?
I'm sorry?
Mike?
Oh, sorry. I guess my question would be, what is the commitment from your employer to move forward with this project? So my hesitance is, you guys purchased a property that is zoned currently for industrial or whatever use. You're now before us without any plans,
Yeah.
and I understand where you're coming from. You want to work with the city, and
Yeah.
I have a little issue that it doesn't seem like you guys have put forth much beside procuring the land. So what does this prevent you from changing the use and then flipping it and selling it? I
Well,
guess
let me
is my
say this.
concern.
I would note that they haven't just, they've been there for many, many years. They haven't been, in fact, the city just named the street Michael Desaway, and everybody was out there. So I think that they have a strong commitment to the community. So they've employed hundreds of people there, and so I will tell you on behalf of Mr. Deser that they have a strong commitment to the city of North Miami. And understand this, the Deser family, they did not just buy this a month ago or a couple of months ago and say, let's zone it and flip it. They're part of this. They're part of the North Miami family for decades, and they've been there for many, many years. And they've always worked. In fact, I will tell you this right now. We're working with the city to host events for. I would say in the entire summer we're going to be hosting events in partnership with the city. So I would say that my answer is they are not. Yeah, if they were a company in Arizona or a company from overseas, that bought this piece of land, and then they're coming, in front of you. The Desert family has always had a strong commitment to work with the city and make sure things are done that enhance the city. So I can make that representation. They're very committed to work with the city, and I think that, I think that this is here. I think that anything that comes back would have to go in front of you anyway. Would have to go in. You would get a shot of that. So, in my opinion, all this does is create opportunities for the city to do things that I think the city had wanted done.
Thank you.
Mr. Held, Chair recognizes.
And thank you for the question.
So just responding to Mr. Clark's question. There was a case out of Gainesville. I think the name of it is Porpoise Point, but, and I was trying to look it up. I couldn't get online, but I think that's the name of it. That an application for rezoning does not need to be accompanied by a site plan. And sometimes, in certain circumstances, it's improper for the city to ask for one unless the application is designed or the context is designed for site plan review. So since that's not this context, he's not obligated to come forward with the site plan at this point in time.
Okay.
And also, once we make the designation, that property stays at that designation, whether or not a landowner sells that property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And if he did want to change it, then he would have to come, a new owner would have to come to us and go through the process of either getting
I don't
denied, yes.
think that's, could
No.
staff elaborate?
Let me just let me just clarify. They will need to come back before you for any development order
Right.
that involves residential dwelling units, because the TOD district requires mixed use. So they'll come back before you, and if the property changes hands, that zoning district travels with the property, not with the
Right.
current owner. But I think, if I may speak on your behalf, sir, and clarify if I'm not, I think you meant to say that the conditional use permit would have to
Yes.
come back.
Yes, that's what I
And
meant.
that's understandable. And you did a perfect job explaining your client's
Yeah,
perspective.
and we're very happy to answer the
The
question.
reality is if we approve this tonight, it does provide a value add to the property.
Right.
I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Right.
So that was my concern.
Right. As with basically anybody, any of the decisions that we do, because you're right in that fact. Mr. McDermott, sir.
No, I know that the Desert family has always been great corporate partners for the city. And I don't know what you may be doing in the future there, but I know that any project that they have done has always been quality work. So anything that you bring forth, I think we'd be delighted to take a look at anyway, just because of the quality of the projects that you do. So
We appreciate that, and on behalf of the family, they strive to do quality projects. They're known for that. They're known for excellent projects, and we appreciate that. That's very nice of you.
yeah, so yeah, I'm in full support of the proposal.
Dr. Besson? You, comments, sir?
My questions were answered already.
All right. Okay, great. We didn't hear you. I don't know if your mic was open there. Commissioner Reed?
That's the old auto museum and the vacant field alongside it?
Yeah, it's the old museum, and you've got an empty
Right.
lot across. Yeah, that's
They moved
correct.
the cars up to Orlando, I believe. if I'm not-
The cars are in the Desert Car Museum in Orlando, all
Yeah, I should have-
500 of them, but they've got other fun stuff going on there. It's still
Yeah,
a fun
no,
place.
What,
It's time for that to be redone. Years ago, that was an importer, exporter, ABC, importer, exporter, then it sat vacant, and, I agree with you.
We've heard that a lot, and that's one of the reasons we're here.
Yeah, I know.
the building that the museum was in, is that now vacant completely, or are you doing something else in that building?
It's the
Is he-
trampoline, right? It's like a
No,
park.
we have a couple. We have amusement and entertainment
Yeah.
Right.
in both buildings,
Okay.
and we have a couple of empty lots, large empty lots across the street that I mean, they've tried to do different things there. They've tried to drive in and other things, but they're essentially vacant and available for more productive use to everybody.
Did he
Is
sell
Age of
the,
Rock still there?
I'm sorry?
Age of Rock still there?
The School of Rock is still there.
Really?
The School of Rock is still there, and they just renewed their conditional use, and they are. And I noticed, Mr. Deser gave me an office, and I didn't realize why that was the only office nobody wanted until I was working, and they started banging the drums. I'm in the School of Rock, and after 3 o'clock, they do their band practice next to my office with the bands and all that. So
good.
I'm getting a hearing aid next week, thanks to that.
We were transported back to the 60s.
That's exactly right.
and then the final question, just out of curiosity, did he sell the property
Which one?
Did he sell the little old gas station that now is a drive-through
No,
soda shop, or is
You
that
know what?
a part of his?
He actually still owns that. He actually still owns it, and he leased it.
His lease?
He leased it to a company called Blackbird Coffee. So
Right.
he still owns it, and he leased it to. It's kind of been an eyesore on Biscayne Boulevard,
Right.
and he leased it to a company called Blackbird Coffee, and they're going to open up their first coffee shop, and they've got all these special whiskey, no
Right.
caffeine coffee, banana coffee. So they're going to be opening up a coffee shop, a drive-through right on Biscayne Boulevard, starting in I think in August.
Right, I did not know he leased that out to that. He still owns that. By the way, I used to buy gasoline at that gas station way back when. And,
It's going to be a drive-through coffee starting in a couple of months.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Mr.
I'll
Chairman?
go ahead and entertain a motion for,
I'd like to move to approve this item.
there's been a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Item,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
we need to have two separate votes, one comprehensive plan
Yes.
map change and the other for the zoning map change.
Okay, so the first vote,
one are you
the
moving,
first
Mr.
motion
McDermott?
that we are,
I'd like to move both of them, actually.
Well, you
well,
can't.
we
I
can't.
know I
we-
can't, but anyway.
Okay, so let me, for the record, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion for PC 1750.
So move.
Mr. McDermott has made a motion to accept
Second.
the item 17-50. There's a second for that motion, and I will do a roll call on this. Mr. Besson?
Aye.
Mr. Besson votes yes. Mr. Clark?
It is going to be sad to see this place go because we held my daughter's 11th birthday party there this year.
Oh, that's great. That is so
So
great.
I have to go home and tell my wife she has to find a new place next
Well,
year.
come
but
back.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Come back this weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark votes yes. Mr. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. McDermott votes yes. Commissioner Each?
Yes.
Commissioner Each votes yes, and Commissioner Ernst votes yes. The item moves forward, 6-0 vote. The next item, entertain a motion. I'm sorry, 5. I didn't do well in math. Forgive me. Okay, the next item then, PC 17-51. The chair
So move.
entertains a motion for approval.
So move.
There is a motion to approve 17-51. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. All in favor of PC 17-51, we'll go ahead and do another voice, roll call on this. We'll begin with Mr. Besson down front.
Yes.
Mr. Besson votes yes. Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Clark votes yes. Mr. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. McDermott votes yes. And Mr. Each?
Yes.
Mr. Each votes yes, and Chairman Ernst votes yes. So the item does move 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
sir,
much.
for
It's great to see you. It's been an honor, and thank you very much, and be safe, and we'll see you out there soon.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
wonderful
much.
evening, and thank you. And thank you to your staff's amazing. They're really great.
Thank you. Good. Bye-bye. Okay, moving along. Let
So,
me,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
so the next three items are on the same property, but I think we're only proceeding with the first two to combine them. And the third item, the conditional use permit application, we should do separately.
All right.
Okay.
So let
That's
me
on the
make sure I
advice of
got my
staff.
right items listed here.
1752 and 53.
Okay, 52. So we did, make sure I got the right items here. Okay. Items 1752, item 1753, and item 1754.
We're just going to do 52 and 53 together, and 54 will be a standalone.
And this is quasi judicial, so I'm going to go ahead and read the two items, like we did before, into the record. That's not, is that correct, staff? With your permission, I'll go ahead and read the two items in, and then we will move forward with commission disclosure at that, and then the staff report. So let's go ahead and read into the record PC 17-52, an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending volume 1, goals, objectives, and policies of the city of North Miami 2036 comprehensive plan, specifically changing the future land use map designation for community facility to central business commercial for the subject property consisting of 2 parcels of real estate property totaling approximately 6.4 acres in size, located at 1776 Northeast 125th Street, identified with Miami-Dade folio number 06-2230-019-0010, and an adjacent parking lot located on the east side of Northeast 8th Avenue, identified by Miami-Dade folio number 06-22-3039-0040, in accordance with section 163-3187 Florida Statutes 2021, and Article 3 entitled Development Review, Division 3, Section 3-302, Section 3-1104 through 3-1107, Sections 3-1109, and Sections 3-1110 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask for commission disclosure, if anyone to discuss any of this.
Did you
These
do
items.
53, sir? Did you do both of them?
Oh, my apologies, yes, I will. Thank you for reminding me. PC 17-53, an ordinance of the mayor, city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations, at Article 1 entitled General Provisions, specifically at Section 1-106 entitled Official Zoning Map, revising the zoning designation from PU, public use, to C3 commercial, for the subject property consisting of 2 parcels of real estate or real property totaling approximately 6.4 acres in size, located at 776 Northeast 125th Street, identified with Miami-Dade folio number 06-2230-019-0010, and adjacent parking lot located at the east side of Northeast 6th Avenue, identified by Miami-Dade folio number 06-2230-039-040, in accordance with section 166.041, parentheses 3, parentheses C, Florida Statutes 2021, and sections 3-1002, 3-1003, 3-1005 through 3-1007, and section 3-302 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations, declaring this zoning map amendment to be consistent with the City Comprehensive Plan, further authorizing the city manager to do all things necessary to effectuate the zoning map amendment, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and for an effective date. Both items that will be presented in the staff report at the same time. And Now I'll go ahead and ask for commission disclosure. This again is quasi judicial. We've already sworn in everyone for all the items. Is that correct, sir? Or do we need to swear in? All right,
Yeah.
so we'll go ahead and we'll swear in Ms. Love, Madam Secretary.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Very good. Commission disclosures. Anyone on the commission has discussed any
No.
one of these items with anyone, any parties or interest in this ordinance? I have talked to staff, by the way, just to get a briefing on this. I did talk with Ms. Love, just to get a little bit more clarification on some of the items which he will be bringing up in the presentation. Other than that, I haven't talked to anyone else. So just to let you know that Ms. Love and I have had prior discussion only to get some clarification as to how the staff will present the report. On that note, Ms. Love, you have the floor.
Thank you again. For the record, Debbie Love, City Planner, Community Planning and Development. Again, these two items before you are companion items, the future land use map amendment and the zoning map amendment. The city our comprehensive plan has had a policy in it for many years that what is called the super block of the downtown civic complex was to be redeveloped. The comp plan defers to the CRA to do it. However, the CRA, the city took it back from the CRA and is moving this project along. While you don't see a site plan or anything like that, again, it's not required for this piece of it. When we get to the third component of it, you'll see there's no site plan or anything yet, because what they've done is, not the last city council meeting, but the council meeting before that, the city council authorized staff to issue RFPs for the various components of the civic downtown revitalization. It's through a public, they're putting the RFPs are being drafted now to be sent out to be sent out or broadcast. Folks will then, development teams will then apply, they'll provide their proposal, and then we'll have a better handle on exactly what else will be needed. Now, the city did a space management, a space planning exercise to determine how big of a structure, how much square foot we would need for a new city hall. The police department, there's a conversation there about whether it's 3 stories or 4 stories. It doesn't appear to be much taller than that ultimately, but it will also include parking structures. The police department is in a different phase of the project. They are in phase 2 of the project. Phase 1 would be City Hall, and in part of that whole phasing will be an opportunity for the developer to come in and tell us what they want to propose otherwise. So we said, look, we need parking, we need so many parking spaces, we need privately secured parking for the police department, we need so much square footage for City Hall and so much square footage for the police department. We're looking at 3-4 stories maximum on either one of those. I think 4 stories is the max that we think. However, ultimately the proposers will tell us what that will be. So today we're trying to set this up so that it has maximum flexibility for whatever is submitted. We know currently, under the current future land use designation, is it's community facility. Community facility allows public uses, and that's about it, right? And it has a height limit of 55 feet. But it's also in the NRO, and the NRO would allow the residential component through a conditional use permit. In order to get the height, be fully maximized in height, and to have that maximum flexibility, which we don't know what they're going to submit, we're requesting that the land use designation to be changed to match what's surrounding the property. Currently, that ours is community facility, and as you can see, we're sort of like a blue sea in the middle of all the gray around us. The downtown, this is the downtown, this is the downtown core. And that land use designation of central business commercial is where they really want to bring development in. So it's in an overlay, it has the NRO, it can do up to 150 feet high, it can do 100 dwelling units per acre. So in order to activate and maximize what they want to potentially come back and do, this land use designation would effectuate whatever comes back, because we don't know what it's going to ultimately be, except we know we need a city hall, we need a police department, there's an expansion of MoCA, although MoCA plans to raise their own money to pay for their expansion, public parking, parking structure, and then anything else they want to do. So, because the market, when they do their pro forma as to what they're going to propose, that's when they'll determine, okay, do I want office, do I need, what kind of retail am I going to propose? And then that proposal will come in and be reviewed by, ultimately approved by whoever they select. So city council will make that ultimate selection. There'll be a recommendation from, usually they put together a selection committee. So all of that will be determined down the road as the proposals come back. So right now, we're just trying to set the stage to allow maximum flexibility for the properties. And it would allow, like I said, it would allow the 150 feet. Now the NRO does allow the residential. And the reason we need to change the land use is actually not because the NRO allows the residential, but the PU doesn't allow any commercial development. So the conditional use permit, ultimately, when this gets done, may have to include, won't need to include any square footage if we had to do without changing that zoning. And we don't know how much square footage they would need, and we have a finite pool of square footage, so changing the zoning makes it just more consistent, and that's what we're recommending. And it will match, actually, you'll see in a moment, it will match really what is the zoning in the surrounding properties. So again, this is another one of those items that will go in August or September, whatever meeting date they have. And again, we don't know when the second reading will be, but then it will take effect 31 days after, because it has a comp plan change as well.
Mhm.
So I sort of combined both of these together. I just want to show you one slide on this. As you can see, all the pink surrounding the green. The green is the PU zoning, and we're in a midst of a sea of C3, so it's consistent. So we're
I'm
not
sorry, what?
inconsistent.
I'm sorry, Debbie, I couldn't.
Yes, sir. It's in a sea of it's surrounded by a sea of C3, so it's consistent with the zoning in the downtown. So it's not like we are asking for something that would be spot zoning. So that's really what I just wanted to show you. And they will have to come back, and you'll see that in the next item will be the conditional use permit, and I want to talk to you briefly about which is why I wanted that separately, so I could talk to you a little bit about the conditional use permit.
Okay.
With that, I'll make that the end of my presentation, sir.
All right, yes, Mike, you had a question to staff?
Through you to staff.
Yes.
Debbie, on the public parking lot, which is right in front of the police station, that's not PU? Because that's owned by the city.
That's actually C3 already.
Because I know it's owned by the city.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't it be PU if it was owned by the city?
It doesn't, we have properties that are not zone PU that we own. This happens to be one of those that's already a C3 property, so it already has everything it needs to redevelop.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me, for the record, go ahead and open the public hearing and close it, since we do not have anyone. But for the record, I'm opening the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Madam Secretary, did we receive any written communications addressing this item?
No communication was received.
Thank you very much. Recognizing there's no public speakers present tonight on this item, I close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed, and we'll go ahead and open up further questioning to staff. Should anyone wish to speak? Mr. Besson, you're up first, sir.
Let me just clarify.
Can you move your mic close to you there, Doctor? Thank you.
Just to clarify, the parking lot across the street
Is it
from...
on, sir?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Now I
Yes.
Okay. The parking lot across the street from the city hall, that's next to the market and so on, who owns that?
City owns that.
Okay, so city owns all this property.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Clarify a few more things, because I haven't been here in a little while. So you're planning on bringing some people in to give you planning advice as to structure?
No, sir.
And I
No,
don't...
it's like, you know, let's just say they're putting out some, sort of like a bid for
bidding,
a
sure, yeah.
development team to come in and propose their particular project. We've given them guidance, the RFP, as they're
Okay.
being developed now, the RFP will say, we want City Hall at this square footage, this height, we want this many, at least this many parking spaces, we
Mhm.
want a police department that is X size, and everything else is up to you. That's my phone, sorry.
I thought I was back in London.
Time for tea.
That's Big Ben talking to me. My apologies. So they'll come back.
Okay,
We've given them the parameters, and they'll come back with a proposal where the site will be, where buildings would be laid out, what other type of uses will occur. So that will be part of the proposal.
Again, just to clarify, if I may also,
Sure.
in my previous discussions with staff on this, we're essentially talking about we're creating the zoning mechanism for someone to be able to, we're telling them, okay, here's what you can do with what we're changing the zoning to within that district. So here you go. Now, let's see what you got.
Yeah, what do you want to do with it?
What do you
Come
want to
back,
do
what
with
are you
it?
gonna do? What are you gonna give us?
okay. Who is going to eventually fund the project?
That, part of that is going to be determined through the agreement. Essentially, in a public-private partnership, there's, as they did with Allure, remember Allure in the SDTOD? They'll create whatever mechanism that works, whether it's a lease agreement, whether it's, you know, selling a particular lot, a land swap. That's typically comes through that RFP, and then whether they want to own the property, or whether they want to do a lease agreement, that will come later. Jennifer, you want to add something?
Yeah,
Since
there's
you've
one
been privy
umbrella
to
that's
that more
doing
than
the
I
lease
have.
now, yeah.
Yeah, so from what I understand, the RFP is not only for the design and construction of the new Civic Plaza, but also for the financing mechanisms
Right.
that the proposer has. So,
Right.
you know, there's different P3 projects that have been done throughout the nation as well as South Florida. But we just don't know what that looks like yet.
Right.
And that'll be part of, you know, what mayor and council decide as far as which
Right.
financing mechanism
Yeah.
works best for the city.
Now the tricky part, which Ms. Love mentioned, MoCA wants to raise funds themselves. I remember a couple of years back that their initiative to want to expand and to raise additional funding to improve MoCA failed miserably and went down in major flames because the people voted against it.
55 votes, it lost by only
Oh,
55.
It was enough, still it should have not lost, in my
Yeah.
opinion, but I'm just
I
saying.
agree.
So, the point being, would they have to go through that, or what does that affect someone like MoCA wanting to go through that process again in order to raise funds? Would they have to go through getting the city permission or having it put on a ballot to raise funds? to
I
improve
don't
MoCA?
believe there'll be a ballot. You
Is
know,
it correct me if I'm wrong, counsel, my understanding is that this is gonna be an annex to MoCA.
You're gonna what, Mike?
It's gonna be an annex
Right.
to MoCA this is what, I don't know, I'm not,
You mean,
I'm not in the purchasing
a separate
department, but-
location, not here, or?
Yeah, no, they'll be, my understanding is they're looking for an annex to the museum, so the museum can raise its own money for its current structure, I would think. I don't know,
We
But
don't
it
know, that's
wouldn't-
all part and parcel, so.
Yeah, well, we'll see that when the RFP comes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll know
But
what
I'm
the
just
RFP comes
interested
out, and
in-
we'll also
in the
know
fact
with
that they-
what
if
the
they have to
design
go-
teams come back to us with.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
but would it still have to go through the election process?
No,
Like-
this would not. This
No.
will be an agreement between the city and a private developer.
Right,
I can tell you that MoCA is slated for phase 3.
okay,
So it has the advantage of that we'll already be going through the city hall and police department.
Mhm.
We'll
okay,
know where we're at by the
Alright.
time we get to MoCA.
yeah,
And we'll know what, and I think that'll determine what finance mechanisms that we see come in for the MoCA project as well.
okay,
Mhm, mhm.
all right, that's good to hear. And,
It'll be
Yeah.
nice to have MoCA
and,
expanded.
and I do love that, just off the record, I mean, I do like that little courtyard in the front there. I think it adds a lot to the city. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't want that to be cut
Oh,
off or
MoCA, yeah.
changed.
Well, MoCA building isn't being torn down. In phase 3, a 12,627 square foot expansion to MoCA and associated improvements would be part
Right.
of phase 3.
But
So it's
the
an-
square
just an
footage in
expansion.
front of them, that basically is not, it's not, realistically, it's not a part of MoCA. So is that correct? That is a city,
What are you
uh,
talking about, the courtyard?
the courtyard. Is that a part of MoCA or is that a part of the
That-
city?
Well, MoCA building is MoCA.
Right,
The courtyard is the city, that's why.
right, the fountain.
That's why there was discussion early in this project about potentially activating that part of it with development. And it came back that, no, we're not gonna mess with the MoCA courtyard.
Right,
But again, we'll know in the
Yeah.
RFP what they're proposing.
I
They
would think
have
that would
room
run
behind
into
it,
this,
right?
I'm
They
sorry.
have room to the south, no?
Yeah, they have room in the
Yeah.
Yeah,
south,
they're
I
going to
believe.
be expanding, they need a more delivery area.
Right.
So like I said, they're planning about a 13,000
Right.
square foot expansion.
With the phasing, again, that affords them the opportunity
Mhm.
to, like the structures where zoning code enforcement is, the planning commission office, they can, correct me if I'm wrong, potentially relocate you in another part of the city for a while, or put you in a trailer or a tent or whatever until demolition is done and they
That whole,
start that phase of
the whole
construction.
phasing will allow,
Right,
and that would be part of the proposal, is how they're going to phase, while they're building something, a new city hall, where's staff going to be? Where's your city staff? So
right,
that would be something they'll have to come up with in the proposal, as to how they're going to work through the phasing of the project.
mhm,
That
was It's gonna be interesting.
that bond issue passed.
yeah,
That really was sad.
yeah. Okay, any other questions, any comments? None? Okay,
I move to
I
approve.
believe so.
Okay.
There's just one more thing.
Oh,
So-
I'm sorry.
You're
Mr.
going,
Chair, Mr. Chair, Dr. Besson was,
Yes.
still had,
I just have another question.
No problem.
So from what I understand, we're gonna go through and change the map overlay, the zoning, in other words, to a C3.
Mhm.
And then you're going to bid out the project, so to speak. Once you bid the project out, they come back to you with ideas. The city doesn't know if it's going to retain the property in its own name, or it's going to have a public-private partnership? Is that what's, I'm sorry.
So right now, we don't know what the financing mechanism will be, but you'll see in the next item that's coming up that's why the city is the applicant for the conditional use permit. Because right now, we're the title owner to the property. We would be the ones that take the lead on it. If at some point, the design team comes back and the winning team has a finance mechanism where there's a transfer, then at that point, you will see it come back for a change in the conditional use permit to transfer ownership rights.
Transfer of title,
Correct.
property. What happens after that? In other words, you transfer the title of the property. Does the city lease the buildings for a certain period of time?
Depends on what the proposal is. That's
Okay.
one option. That
Right.
may be one thing that we see come back.
How do you wind up not getting a rent increase later?
That'll be part of the agreement that we put in place.
Okay, and the
Much like
solidity
the
that
Wildcat,
there's
like the Wildcat Center.
Correct.
had-
Or like Allure. Allure
Allure.
didn't have a financing mechanism, right? That was something that was negotiated with council.
Right.
And would we, who
And
would set the
just know,
terms?
we have a team of consultants dedicated just to the negotiations for this.
The amount of time that a lease has to be agreed by both parties, and,
It will be public. It will be a public discussion for sure.
all right,
Eventually, the mayor and city council will vote on that, or?
Absolutely, absolutely.
and would,
And they even have to select the final proposal. They'll have the,
yeah.
well, as I said, well, they may have a committee that looks at it. Ultimately, the city council has to
What
make
group?
that
I'm
decision.
sorry, I didn't hear, what group were you saying?
They tend to, generally set up a selection committee. So if you get multiple proposers, they generally will reduce it down to, if you get 15 proposals and, 5 of them make the cut, ultimately, even though the committee would make a recommendation, city council ultimately makes the decision which development team they would award it to.
When
or
we,
teams.
when we did Solomia, there was a round of public hearings prior to that, correct? Do you anticipate the same process where once we have bids open, what part would the public have in having a voice as far as what the proposals are that are out there? In other words, let's say there's 3 developers that are fighting for this. And if I'm not correct, Mike, did we not have public hearings with Solomia, and it came
Yes.
down to each one of those developers making a presentation in a public hearing setting, not so much at board setting or the commission, but there were public hearings set up. So I would hope that mechanism will be put in place, so that makes it all transparent as to who these bidders are, who the players are in this, and basically let the bidding begin. And then, and I would encourage the city to please promote the heck out of that so we can get everybody's participation in it.
Well, there's
Okay.
also supposed to be some round of public review at certain stage.
Right,
And they'll see the proposals, if they are winnowed down from 15 to 3, there'd be a recommendation that goes before city council, Jennifer, correct me. And then ultimately, council would decide either take the committee's recommendation or select another, but at the council meetings, do they usually have all of the presenters there?
So this will be a case of first impression for the city council. They just recently adopted a P3 ordinance to pave the way for this process. I would imagine, knowing the city council the way that they've handled big ticket items like this, that they will rest assured. It is a public hearing. They are required to have their decision-making be made public and have citizen input on it. As far as presentations from the bidders, all of that will be decided kind of later on in the game.
right.
And how they do that, just kind of, I think, depends on how many proposals we have, how it gets narrowed down.
Right. But the preliminary committee, made up of city staff, is that correct? And
Different
you
departments,
can
depending
enlighten me a little
upon.
bit, would be, for instance, planning?
Well,
Mhm.
purchasing makes the decision, they create the selection committee, so,
Right.
depending upon the project, there could be, multiple, I'll let Jennifer,
It
weigh
could
in
be
on that.
inside, it could be outside. Traditionally, for most evaluation committees, our purchasing department does tend to defer to city staff. But because this is a case of first impression, it is a P3 project, They may consult with outside people that maybe have sat on P3 evaluations before.
Mhm.
But we're just not at that stage yet where they've
Right.
made that decision as to who will be
Okay.
making the rankings.
That was an FYI question for myself. Thank you.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other comments?
I think I had a motion to.
Almost, yeah, I cut you off
Second.
before you got it all out.
Okay, for the comp plan change, for the
I
future
did,
land
yeah.
use map
I'm
amendment
sorry.
first.
Yeah.
So Mr. McDermott has a motion on the floor
Okay.
to move for approval.
We got
Do I have a
two.
second on this?
Which one are we moving on?
The land
moving-
use.
The future land use map first.
Okay.
Which is
Second.
17-53.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Each seconds the motion to
52.
approve 17-53. Roll.
52 first.
I stand corrected. PC-1752. Motion is on the floor and seconded. We'll take a roll call. Dr. Basin?
Yes.
Dr. Basin, yes. Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Clark, yes. Mr. McDermott?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Each?
Yes.
And Mr. Ernst, yes. 1752 is approved. Move forward. Next item up for a motion, as presented, was 17-53. Chair entertains a motion for approval for 17-53.
So moved.
Mr. McDermott's motion to approve. Do I have a second on the motion to approve 1753?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Each. Roll call on this again. Mr. Basin?
Yes.
Mr. Basin votes yes. Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Clark votes yes. Mr. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. McDermott votes yes. Mr. Each
Yes.
votes yes. And Mr. Ernst votes yes. Both 1753 and PC 1752 will move forward to the City Council. Again, what's the meeting that they will see this? Debbie?
I'm sorry, sir?
They get this item when?
Tentatively 8:30.
Do you think we're going to have to schedule 2 meetings like we did now?
That's why
we'll talk
I
about
Oh, okay,
I
I'm
said that,
sorry.
yeah, the
I'm ahead of
CM
the
is
game,
working
sorry.
toward
Yeah, we'll-
adding a meeting because
right.
10 items just from community planning and
Right.
development. She said, stop, we have to do another
Yeah,
meeting.
that'll be the items we'll discuss when we get to new business. We'll figure that out
Yes, sir.
and make sure everybody is good with their calendars on that.
Okay. right,
So
thank you,
let's
Chair.
go ahead and move forward to the final item of the night is 17-54. This is also quasi-judicial, is this correct, Council? Yes? And so therefore, we'll need to swear in Ms. Love again for this item. Madam Secretary, if you could, please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And Chair will ask if any commission members have had any conversations prior to this meeting to discuss this item with anyone, either for or against this proposal in this ordinance. Hearing none, I have none, other than what I mentioned earlier in my discussion with Ms. Love concerning some clarity on some of the text involved in the item. All right, so PC 17-54, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving an application for a conditional use permit and substantially the attached form for proposed mixed-use development with up to 450 dwelling units for the subject property consisting of 2 parcels of real property totaling approximately 6.4 acres in size, located at 776 Northeast 125th Street, identified with Miami-Dade folio number 062230-019-0010, and an adjacent parking lot located on the east side of Northeast 8th Avenue, identified by Miami-Dade folio number 06-2230-309-004, in accordance with Article 3, Division 4, Section 3-402 through 3-407, Article 4, Division 2, Sections 4-202, Sections 4-203, parentheses A, and Sections 4-205, and Article 4, Division 3, Section 4-306 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulations, providing for an effective date for all other purposes. Staff report, please.
Last time for tonight, for the record, Debbie Love, City Planner, Community Planning and Development. This last item, the reason I asked you to call this out a little differently and not do it as part of the future land use zoning map change is I just wanted to highlight a few things on the conditional use permit. As Ms. Warren noted, we are the applicant for both the land use and the zoning change. We're also the applicant for the conditional use permit. Ultimately, this conditional use permit, we're requesting 450 dwelling units. The analysis that came from the firm that Ms. Warren was referring to says maybe 200, maybe 300 dwelling units will come in. But we wanted to make sure we had a pool set aside just in case it comes in higher than that. This is going to come out of the primary pool. The way this conditional use permit is going to be set up is it will be in our name initially, and then whoever the final selector is, and then depending upon the financing, we may have to bring it back to you to modify the conditional use permit itself, to add additional uses. It could change the number of dwelling units, so the conditional use may end up coming back to Planning Commission with those changes, because the conditional use permit right now, it has a hole in it. It doesn't say how many square feet of office or square feet of retail, or technically it just says how many dwelling units and that we are going to do this sort of development. So it'll get more granular once the proposer is selected and the project is selected. And then then that will determine whether we retain ownership of the property, and then the CUP would be in our name, or how we would do it. It may be that we transfer a portion of the conditional use permit, don't really know yet. So I just wanted to put that out there so that you understand it's still a little bit of flux as to the final iteration of the conditional use permit. Because technically right now, it is going to be the city hall, as we talked about before, police station, parking. We're hoping that they will include a hotel maybe. That would be a hotel. That would be on our wish list as a city. But what they ultimately propose, as we've talked, that will affect and that will impact the final iteration of the conditional use permit, because technically the conditional use permit gets recorded once the final site plan is approved. So between the RFP, we'll know the uses and the square footage and things like that. But the DRC review will fine tune the site plan itself, so that when what gets recorded, when we have a conditional use permit, after city council approves the site plan, we bring it back to you guys for site plan approval. It goes, for CUP, the final site plan will go to city council, and then that gets recorded with the conditional use permit. So we don't have anything really to record at this point, but it will happen down the road. So when that happens, the conditional use permit may need to be modified a bit, but we're going to try to keep it. At this point now, we really want to set aside those 450 dwelling units is really the purpose of the conditional use permit now, so that we can say we've got those locked in, and whether they pull 300 of it or whether they do 200 out of it, and then the remainder, as Ms. Warren and I have discussed, the remainder will be, and I put in the staff report, will revert back to the pool. It doesn't stay on the property. It will revert back to the pool. So those are some key important points I wanted to call out, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this separately. And everything else is the same, you know, we just talked about what the typical zoning was. And again, you'll see that we put in 450 units, dwelling
And these are
units.
locked in, right?
I'm sorry?
These are gonna be locked in?
These will, the conditional use permit will lock it in, will lock the units in, and any unused units after we get the proposal.
Go
and
back
site
into
plan,
this.
we'll put it right back into the pool. We're not going, typically, if you give them 700 units as a project, and their initial round is only 600, technically, they still have that 100 that somebody can come back and add to. That's not going to be the case for us. This will be a civic center complex with X amount of units. So they will be required to do LEED Silver, by the way, because any city-owned building or city-sponsored development or anything like that has to be LEED Silver. So you've got a higher level of certification. Certified is just like LEED, right? Silver is the next stage, the next step up. So it does a little bit more energy conservation. It has more site issues that gives them the silver certification. So there's a number of additional requirements that they have to meet to get the LEED Silver certification.
I'm sorry.
Question.
Debbie,
sir.
450 dwelling units can be hotel rooms, they're considered?
No, sir. Hotel rooms are not dwelling units. But what that does do is whatever the density is, you multiply that by 2, and that's how many hotel rooms you,
What's
up
the
to.
formula on the hotel?
Dwelling units times 2.
So they could put 900, they could almost put 900
So you
room,
could put 900 hotel rooms in.
900 hotel rooms
Mhm.
in there.
Technically, if they do the 450. Now, again, the market's going to drive the number, whatever they put forward. Their pro forma will say, look, this is what will work for us financially, whether that's,
No.
and if they only are pulling 200 dwelling units as the consultant seems to think that will occur, then the max number of rooms they could have would be 400
Yeah.
hotel rooms. So
More
then they have to
realistic.
deal with, yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
is the requirement for them to be LEED Silver or to design to LEED Silver requirements?
They have to design to LEED Silver and become LEED Silver certified.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not just the design, it's actually, before you get your CO, you need to show me proof of certification. So, the last bullet is really what I want to call your attention to. And I just said to you in long form, but I put short form up here on the slide. All of the architectural, what it's gonna look like architecturally, where the site, where all the buildings are gonna be laid out, where the landscaping is going to be, all of those things will come through the proposal and then ultimately through the DRC review process, because we have our consulting architect who will also be making comments on the architecture, and staff would be looking at it just like any other DRC application. Because we have to meet the same requirements as we would anybody else. So with that, that's essentially the end of my presentation, but just to give you a couple of little pointers here. Again, they're going to have to do large sidewalks on 125th. They'll have to do larger sidewalks all the way around the block. And 100% fluorinated vegetation. Again, this is, like I said, this is a busy city council agenda, and the CUP is scheduled to be heard when these other items are. And then after that, the next step would be, after they get the proposals in, they'll have to design it. They'll have to actually get to that point where they've got to design, technically a design, that they'll put in their proposal, but then there could be tweaks. We want to make sure, do you have enough parking spaces to accommodate the city's use, your restaurant that you're proposing, your hotel room, all those things would be worked out through the DRC process, so that the ultimate end site plan is what goes before city council and then gets recorded as part of the conditional use permit.
So, let's say somebody wants to construct a parking garage, but do they have the leeway of going all in on the residential units and public parking as a part of a garage or whatever? And so you know, I think the parking component is important that we put into this, looking down the road. And I wouldn't want that to be shortchanged, but at the same time, not have it affect something that is just equally as beneficial to the city, say like a good hotel or a decent place for, residential component part
Well,
of it.
as they are doing their RFP, putting that together, they do their due diligence as to what the code would require. So the city says for our space, we need 400 parking spaces based upon our space needs analysis and
Right.
square footage. And the police department says they need, I'm just gonna make up a number for them, they need 97 secure parking spaces
Right.
that's separate from the public or separated from the public.
Right,
So as they put together their RFP and they say, okay, we want to put in a restaurant, we want to have a daycare center, and we want a hotel. We know we need to do all of that parking, and here's how we're gonna lay it out. And then staff would actually then, work with them, because we're going to want EV charging stations and EV infrastructure.
right.
So there'll still be a lot of back and forth with that, but they've got minimum parking requirements that the code says they'll have to meet, and they'll have to put that into their proposal when they're
Minimum.
doing their RFP.
Yes, sir.
So Debbie,
Yes, sir.
during a typical conditional use permit application, there is a limited set of plans that is presented to the planning commission.
That is
Is that
correct, sir.
correct?
That's correct.
So it seems like that step is being skipped here.
Mhm.
Is there possibility that input from the planning commission might be sought at some point?
So just like we alluded to, right now, we're the lead, we're the title applicant for the conditional use permit. But we don't plan it to end that way. We do plan, once we pick our design, once the mayor and council make their selection, we do plan to fine tune that CUP. There may be a change in ownership depending on the finance mechanism, and then it will come back to the planning commission for fine tuning and finalization of that document before it gets recorded. So this won't be the last time you see it, but the reason we're doing, and skipping the step is that it's a necessary step to skip at this point because of the dwindling amount of units that are left in the pool. The worst case scenario that would happen is that we would go through all of these efforts, get to the finish line, pick the winning design, and not be able to build it. So that's why we're deciding to go forward as the applicant, take the lead, take the initiative, secure those units in our name, with the understanding that we do plan to bring it back and fine tune it as a final document, where we lay that all out. We just don't know yet what that looks like, but we do know that somewhere around 450 is what our consultants say is feasible for this design concept, and what will have some kind of profitability, and what we can expect to see coming in.
I would think, I mean, speaking for myself, is that it would be the hope that the city would find a way that all the elements that we wish to have put in place are put in place without anything being sacrificed. I don't know, that's gonna be kind of up to your committee to understand that if, they wanna sell this idea to the public and make good on this project and have it work, is that, we set set certain goals that these developers and whoever's going to be presenting these plans to us, this is what we want incorporated in there.
Well, that's a requirement of the RFP. You have to
Right.
have this, and this,
Right.
right? So,
But
but it'll
with all
come
due
back.
respect, the counselor mentioned that
But
there could be a situation where something could get left out or a decision made not to include that in there. And that's what I'm trying to
No.
avoid.
No.
Yeah, I don't,
No.
yeah, that's not what I'm hearing.
No?
No, I'm hearing that they're gonna detail it within the RFP, so the
Yeah.
bidding developers will, as
Will
part
know
of the
in
RFP
advance.
process,
Yep.
will technically be mandated to provide those as part of
If
their
you don't,
development.
you get thrown out.
Okay,
Exactly.
Mhm.
all
It's a
right.
prerequisite to
And
participating
if
in the RFP.
if we have to bring the conditional use permit back to you, you could see, we would most
Right.
likely, to Mr. Hell's point, most likely have some plans and a site plan that you'd be able to see, because it's been fine-tuned down enough that we know
Right,
what ultimately they are conceptually proposing,
right,
and we'll bring it back as a clean whatever it is, and you'll be able to see it. But it's definitely going to be a transparent process in the entire design process. Will be
Yeah.
very transparent from what I understand how they're going to go through this.
but again, I guess my point being missed was that the committee putting this together, you know, I would hope that they are considering every possible item that we would want put in there, and that something's not overlooked. And if something is overlooked, you know, there's got to be a mechanism to say, oh, you know, we didn't really think about the fact that we need extra bike racks or something like that, and that we need that, or the greenery's not sufficient.
Right, well, that will be at DRC,
Okay.
because the proposer will make a proposal that will say, you know, this is what it's gonna look like, this is what we think, you know, we're gonna propose. We still are going to double check it to make sure you've got adequate bike racks, your landscaping is
Right.
appropriate, it's well-designed, and architecturally, it's an attractive, you know,
Yeah.
attractive facility.
Yeah, I think what he's asking is I guess the hit list of what the city or the committee feels are their important items to have. Is the RFP gonna be reviewed in some form of a workshop or brought? I think that's what he's asking.
I don't know.
So I do know that, you know, the city does have a wish list. It does have highly coveted concepts that they want to see in the proposal. Those are mandated, those are part of the RFP. Those are already there, from what I understand. So any person that's bidding on it already knows, we've kind of already showed our hand. We've
Mhm.
already
Right.
shown them what we want to see.
Okay,
And then it'll be up to them to come back with the creativity to hit all those minimums, the mandatory marks, show us how they do it, plus more.
Got it.
plus more.
Mhm.
The
And
keyboard
is
being
the
plus
RFP
more.
available via Online City right now, or is it in the process of being put
They're
together?
under development.
Okay.
They just reported back to us today that they've started drafting that, right, Jennifer?
30 days? Okay.
Okay,
And it's under review? Yeah, we haven't seen it, because it's still in working
Right.
form.
okay, all right.
Is additional public parking as part of that list?
Yes, actually, in addition to the 400 public spaces, that includes, bear with me just a second, my memory. The 400 public spaces, sorry. There it is. We've got the square footage, the footprint, building height. There it is. 430 public parking that will serve City Hall staff and the general public. The parking space requirements have been estimated to be approximately 430 spaces. That allows for the public, it allows for people to come at night when, you know, most of the spaces are empty anyway from staff, so we think 430 would be adequate. They're based on
When they
that
talk about
analysis.
hotel, are they, this is all sort of related to parking. When they talk about the hotel, do they indicate how many units they're looking for in a hotel?
No, we don't know that, no. We're
No.
just saying it's our wish list is to have a hotel.
So the
Because
wish
So parking's gonna be a big issue.
then
Well,
that will be part,
yeah.
Yeah.
so this
When
is
we
the
get to
bare
that point, I
minimum.
guess.
Yeah.
We need,
Oh.
this is the bare minimum for our purposes.
Right,
Any other use will require them to provide parking for those other
Right.
uses they're
Yeah.
proposing.
and that would come back to us,
Right,
no
Yeah,
doubt,
as part of
because.
the conditional use permit.
Right.
Mhm.
yeah.
part
You'll
of
get
it,
more
and we can-
details like we usually have in
Right.
the conditional use permit that we can't give you at this point,
Yeah.
other than the 450 residential units. So it'll come back to you guys with the site plan, and and the plans and do like the typical that you would normally see.
Just one more question.
Sure.
Affordable housing? No?
They're all supposed to be workforce affordable housing,
Okay.
is our wish
Those
list.
450 units?
I don't know what percentage of that would be, but that's our wish list is workforce affordable housing. Because they may have a mix of market and workforce housing,
Mhm.
that they have to, through their pro forma, figure out what works for them.
Now, and this is maybe a little separate. When we're reviewing these applications and we're talking about affordable housing can be done many different ways. My preference would be to have it done in a way that doesn't isolate the people that are occupying the affordable housing units in such a way that there's some developers tend to do separate entrances, the finishes are not matching of the other units, and I think you're familiar. So that's my own question. So how are we handling that? And that's just more of a educating me, I guess, in the city.
Well, typically, we don't say they have to be integrated. The footprint of most sites limit that and force integration. I prefer mixed income, but there are other places in the city and other folks who disagree with me with the mixed income. They, I believe that everybody should be the same, but the finishes are not going to be the same because the units the cost of construction is different for a market rate unit versus an affordable housing unit. So we never look at that. We just look at it. Does it externally look, fit in? So we don't have anything in our code that says thou shalt integrate it. But staff, we definitely talk about that with integration and making sure that they all look similar on the, at least externally, so that you can't pick out, oh, that's an affordable housing.
That's the whole premise, yeah. So, and that's a topic maybe I'll talk to you offline, not
Sure.
part of this meeting.
Internally, we don't control it. Externally, we do. We don't say you can't go,
You brought up a
that's the
good point.
affordable versus the market.
Miss-
You
Mr.
brought up a good point, and I brought this out at the CRA the other night. We're talking about the project over here by Mike, by the Chamber of Commerce. And I said they're gonna have an oasis on the roof.
That's another.
That's gonna be affordable housing. Well, is there gonna be a swimming pool on the roof? I mean, are these amenities, they should have the same amenities as if we put that luxury building up over in Keystone, not Keystone, God forgive me, don't say Keystone. If we put that luxury on the bay over there,
The White House.
why not? Other buildings that are market rate have swimming pools in it. And I had a laugh, it kind of irked me, like when we approved this building on Fourth Avenue on 125th Street, there were no amenities in that, and they're telling me, well, we're gonna have a community room. Who the hell goes to a community room when you get home from work? I wanna go to a swimming pool. I don't wanna go into a community room. So I believe that it should be maybe part of the code. Workforce housing, affordable housing, yes, they should have those amenities. Otherwise, look, let's look at public housing. Let's go back to after World War II. We ended up with the New York City housing projects under Bob, what the hell, I was gonna say Bob Graham, oh my God, Jesus, my brains are gone. But you had, in Chicago, you had old Mayor Daley putting up Cabrini Green and all of these projects, very sterile, nothing there. And then his son comes along 50 years later, knocks them down. I mean, if you want to, you want to get away from warehousing people, and you want to afford them the same upward mobility and pride in their residence as anybody else. And if we're gonna do affordable housing and workforce housing, I think that should be, the same amenities should be in there as they are in market rate housing. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah, well, basically, wordage could be.
Bob Moses,
Yeah.
this just came to me. Doc, I better see you later, my brain's, was Bob Moses in New York, who was the most powerful guy over there that did the New York City Housing Authority, the Parks Department, the whole 9 yards, the empire builder. But,
I think
you brought up a good point. I'm
Yeah, I would
sorry
like- we would have further conversation
editorialize.
how we as a city could work to
Direct
figure out a mechanism.
Right.
Direct that.
Yeah.
And again, we can't mandate developers do certain things, but just have a mechanism to kind of make sure that it's equal
Certainly,
as much as it
through
can
ways
be.
of encouraging shared amenities,
Correct.
shared,
Well, if it's a mixed income project, they share the
They
amenities
have the shared-
yeah,
that they would of the luxury units. The
Right.
only thing different typically that in my experience has been the internal finishes. They may not have granite countertops,
Oh.
you know, they may have, what's the corian?
Corian? Yeah.
right.
Versus a granite countertop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But externally, they do have to look the same.
Mm.
I motion to, unless there's any question.
No, any further comments, gentlemen? None, seeing none, the chair recognizes the motion to move for approval of item 17, PC 17-54.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
Mr. Clark is moved for approval of PC 17-54, seconded by Commissioner McDermott. We'll take a roll call on this, beginning with Dr. Besson.
Yes.
Dr. Besson is a yes. Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark is yes. Commissioner McDermott?
Yes.
Commissioner McDermott is yes. Commissioner Each?
Yes.
Yes, I'm from Commissioner Each, and Commissioner Ernst, yes. Item passes 5-0. Move on to the city council. Again, that's at the same meeting, correct, Debbie? The 8:30?
Whatever
meeting.
date that ends up being, but yeah. they're
Right.
the same.
When is the next meeting?
8:30 is the next city
Council
council
meeting.
meeting.
We're-
No, but I mean the next planning. I might
Well,
be out of
we're
town.
gonna be talking about that
Yeah,
in
we're
just a
gonna,
moment.
that'll be, speaking of that, before we close up,
We have a new business item, that
Yeah,
when we get to a new business.
there are no committee reports to discuss, any old business, none. On the new business now, under new business, we've got to discuss our agenda for September and October.
Okay. On 9/6, the CBOs are coming forward. And anybody who's been here knows that's a long process. That can take,
Right,
that can take some time
Yes.
all by itself.
right.
And we have several, we have 4 conditional use permits, and we have a land use and a zoning map amendment. My, as I mentioned to the chair, is you all may want to think about adding an additional meeting, because the CBOs could run you right out of time to handle all those conditional use permits. And
Actually, I think they did last year.
they did.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they went very late.
And so we
Yeah,
ended up having to have another meeting, and
Right.
I want to cut it off at the pass and be proactive
Right,
and set up a second meeting. And your secretary has been working diligently to provide you with some options, that if you want to do that, sir, if
Okay,
you're
yeah.
amenable to doing that.
Madam Secretary, Stephanie, what do you have for us for a second meeting option?
Let's see here, let me bring up my calendar.
First meeting, by the way, again, is 9/6. That's
9/6.
Tuesday. That would be the first meeting.
Yeah, I might
And
be out
we
of
would
town.
anticipate probably 4 items at that meeting, maybe, or we'll set a time limit.
No,
for
you're going
that.
to have, besides the CBOs, you have 4 conditional use permits, a land use and a zoning map request for the same property.
Why, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Why don't we do all of those separately from the CBOs?
Well, that's the other reason
Well, that's- yeah.
you want
There
to
would
have
still
this
be a second
discussion.
meeting. In other words, we
You
could
all can
have
decide.
just the first meeting involving the CPOs only.
I would think that would be wise.
Because there is a presentation before that you mentioned that's not
Yes,
a part of,
The consultant for the comprehensive plan wants to make as I mentioned earlier,
right,
I've asked them to come before you at your 9/6 planning commission meeting to kind of give you an update, share some information that they've discovered, let
okay.
you know where they are in the process, talk about some of the public outreach that they may, that they're trying to
Yeah.
get taken care
And that
of.
could be timely too, correct?
It's only about 15 minutes right at
15
the
minutes?
beginning.
So we could, in reality, schedule them first
Mhm.
and do our CBOs. So on your, with your question, I would recommend then that we get that presentation done on the 6th along with the CBOs on the 6th only.
And the other option that I would ask that you think about is what we would do first would be, we have like, a couple of the conditional use permits are very small projects. They're like 12 units total. You may be able to get through a couple of those, and maybe you just set a cutoff time and say, look, whatever we can get to by 10:30 or 10 o'clock, we can do, because the CBOs could take your first 2 hours, and by 9 o'clock, you could still then have time to maybe review some of the conditional use permits. So if we just say 9/6 with a rollover like we did before of
Right.
whatever the remaining items are, that would be my recommendation to you as staff, because you could be finished at 9 o'clock
Right,
and not have, and still have had time to
Right.
take care of some of the other items.
okay. But you said 4 conditional, they're all separate. The 4 conditional units are separate.
You've got two.
Not like tonight, for
Two
instance, we wouldn't
small
want to.
ones, and the one that's coming before you for that brownfield out west on 17th Avenue? out
Yeah,
west.
yeah.
They're coming in now to do the development proposal after you've approved the brownfield. And now they're coming back with a conditional use permit, because in PD districts,
I wouldn't
they're
want
not,
that on
they're
the
not
same
doing,
night
they're
as
not doing
the,
anything over as of right. They're not doing
Right.
anything
That's
more
the
than as
the
of
old
right.
YMCA property, right?
That's the old
Yeah,
YMCA
yeah.
property,
Now,
yes, sir.
my understanding from past items on that particular item, there's a lot of people who are going to want to come and
Yes.
speak.
yeah,
The way I plan to schedule them is the two smaller ones, the ones I would tell you, the 12 units, 9 units,
Right.
those two first. Then we have that one, and then we have another one that's on some, it's in the North Miami Transit Station overlay. It's on a industrial piece of property between the track and 14th. Those two items, you may want to continue, like you said, we'll schedule those smaller, less, what we think may be less controversial. And then you can pick up and get to whatever your stopping point is that you all decide, whether that's 10 o'clock, 10:30,
Yeah.
and then we'll continue to the next meeting, the
Well,
remaining items.
I don't want everybody to come here on the 6th thinking that there's a possibility that they would be able to speak. I would rather them know now or beforehand that we're not going to address this until 9/8. So,
Well, here's the challenge with that, sir. The applicant pays for one notice of meeting. Their fee covers one notice. I would have to create 2 separate noticing systems and charge them 2 separate noticing, versus having it on and then say having a continuance date.
right, like
On
we
the
did the
notice.
last meeting, where we just continued it and cut it off. But we did have to let everyone know ahead of time that there's a possibility that we won't get this item read in tonight.
Right.
Is there a need to have a tentative third date?
I don't
No,
anticipate
because it
you
would have
need
to
a
be
third date, sir.
advertised,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
But we haven't advertised anything yet.
yeah, because the 4 conditional use permits and the zoning and land use change, you could probably tackle at least 2 of the 2 smaller ones at the same meeting, and then the remainder, the other 2 conditional use permits and the zoning and land use change amendment, it could be handled very easily at the second meeting.
Okay.
So,
Well,
That-
yeah,
that's staff
I'm just
recommendation.
concerned with having a crowded, this is a situation of having a crowded chamber, 4 hours, and then we decide, or 3 hours, and then that group doesn't get to speak on that night. That's the reason why I was suggesting.
I was just conferring with Ms. Warren, and neither one of us can figure out how to do that without separate noticing and separate
Right.
costs.
Yeah, I know, I'm
I
trying to.
don't think separate costs would be fair to.
No.
applicants.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Well, yeah, in preference to the applicant, yeah, we'll just have to explain to them, as we did the last meeting, that there's a potential that some of the items will not get read tonight. So, they know it beforehand. That's the best we can deal with it, I
Is
guess.
there a way to put the items that we feel will have less of a community presence forth first, and the ones that we know are probably gonna
No, because one,
back?
the chances are, two of them on the same night could also present the problem of not being, of running very late.
Well, the
Because-
two smaller ones, I don't anticipate them to be, you have a room full of folks, the two smaller ones. The one on Northwest 17th, you could have some folks come in. The second one, on the industrial property, they have the county on one side of them, they have another industrial property on the other side of them, and they have mixed use
Yeah.
on the other side. So I really don't anticipate that to be a controversial one.
Okay.
So the order that I was considering for that agenda would have been the two conditional use permits, the small ones. Because the CBOs is gonna suck up your time and give you the CBOs, two smaller ones first. You got the presentation, CBOs, two smaller CUPs, and then the next one would be the larger, the land use and zoning map amendment. And then the final one would be the bigger CUP that I think would have more folks turning out
More
for. It
input
would be the
from-
last item.
All right.
But
Yeah,
we'll talk about
that's
more of
fine.
that
And
internally.
again, like we did the last meeting, we'll have to announce that
Can
we
you
get
start the
to
meeting
a
early?
point where it looks like it could go to 11 o'clock.
Let me see.
If we could set a time limit like we did when 10:30
There's an.
cutoff point.
There's an option, as Mr. Hill just brought up a point, there's an option of starting the meeting a little earlier. If you'd like to have the meeting, say, start at 6 versus 7.
I don't know how that would affect some of the people's work schedules, so
People coming from work may be affected.
that could be affected. That's why the 7
I
o'clock.
know they
wouldn't
did
wanna move
the
that.
6:30, when they did that, when they put that on, they actually made that at 6 o'clock versus 7 o'clock at city council.
Still a long night.
So which dates, so at this point now, we've got September 6th for the first meeting, and Madam Secretary, what would be some options for the second date?
You have the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, which is a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or the following week, the 14th.
I wouldn't want to
No, I'm
go
sorry,
to
not
another
the
week.
We're gonna we have to stay with that same week. Mr. Held is not available on the 7th of September,
Okay.
so,
Until the 19th, so
through the 19th.
through the 19th.
So he's not, so Jennifer, we're gonna have to get somebody to fill in for Mr. Held for the September meeting.
Unless you can consider the 22nd as your second day.
Yeah. 9/8 would be my preference. I don't know,
Which is
anybody,
the Thursday,
the Thursday,
the Thursday after the
7
meeting?
PM Thursday, the 8th.
What do you guys think? Are you
Dr.
okay?
Besson,
I mean, yeah, whatever. Or,
Mr.
I
Clark?
mean, it's whatever, if you guys can find someone interim, or can we push it to the, no?
We can't push it further, because,
Because it has to go before, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
We've
fine with
gotta
that.
stay on track with city council
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Commissioner
So it'd be
Each,
the 6th and the 7th,
you find the
Six
second meeting
and
is on
the
8th?
9th.
the 9th.
The 9th is Thursday?
The 9th is
No,
a Friday.
Friday.
I'm sorry, no, what's the,
Yeah, I
what's
wouldn't
the,
wanna do,
the 8th,
The
sorry.
Thursday.
yeah,
Yeah,
6 and
the
8.
6 and 8 looks good.
6 and
Okay.
8, it's good for Mr. McDermott. I'm fine with 6 and 8. Dr. Besson, I haven't heard from you yet, sir.
Just in case we need Dr. Besson to make quorum.
Probably okay on the 8th, the 9th I wouldn't be available.
Okay.
All right, okay.
All right, well, Thursday, we
Tuesday,
definitely
good.
try to keep these on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yes.
That's generally what we try to do.
Right.
This Wednesday, we got bumped for budget tomorrow
Right.
night, so,
Right.
hopefully we don't get bumped again.
Right.
But, so
Okay,
it's the
so that
September
takes
meeting
care of
is the
September. Chief, are you on board?
6th and the 8th?
Mr. Each, are you on board for the 9th and 6th?
I won't be here on the 6th, I don't think.
The 6th and the 8th.
I'll be out of
6th
town.
and 8th, and also out on the 8th?
I
September?
gotta check, I don't know.
All right.
I'm
But
gonna
you
be out.
definitely will not be here on the 6th.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
All right.
I'll see.
All right.
What I'll do, Deb, I'll call you tomorrow.
All
I'll
right.
check my
Just let
schedule. I don't
Stephanie
think so.
Just let
Okay.
the secretary know of whether you'd be attending
Yeah,
or not,
I
but at
mean,
this
I-
point,
I-
we'll
I'm
calendar
gonna be out
the
of
6th,
town.
the 6th and the 8th?
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
all right, so
Yes.
then.
Moving to
you're-
October.
So then that takes care of September. So October, Mr. Held, do you want to speak to October, what the issue is? Okay.
Oh, wait,
How's-
okay.
Yeah.
So the meeting scheduled for October is on Tuesday, October 4th, which is the beginning of Yom Kippur that evening, because it's a Jewish holiday the next day, and Jewish holidays typically begin sundown the day before. So that would be a religious conflict. I would not be able to attend. I don't know how many other people would not.
Why don't we just move it a week, Gary?
Can we move it a week or can we move it to a Thursday? I have a problem the following week. I go into boat show mode October 10th. I'm off the grid starting October 10th.
Madam
So-
Secretary, what is the availability?
October 6th is available.
October 6th is
Which
the
is
next day,
Thursday?
but that's
Thursday,
Yeah,
Thursday? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thursday's okay.
Thursday.
yes.
Thursday, October.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry, what was it?
that.
Stephanie?
October
Okay.
I'm good with
6th,
that.
Thursday.
Right.
Okay,
Mr.
10.
Each, are you back? You're good with October 6th? Okay, good.
Okay.
So October 6th it
I'll
is.
be here.
So we're going to have a special meeting October 6th. And
September 6th and,
6th and
September
8th.
Mhm.
Right, so, sounds good.
Right.
And that's it for my discussion.
All right.
I have a
Mr. Clark?
question, and this is more maybe a housekeeping thing. The CRA provides, for the meetings, they provide an iPad with the actual agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a possibility that, I don't know what the process is and what it takes
Mhm.
to do that, just a
Right.
question. Is it a process to have that? Because we're burning a lot of paper for all these meetings.
Yeah, I was told by IT, I've been promised this since I've been here,
Okay.
for the last almost 5 years,
Yeah.
that they were going to make you guys
They
Well,
gave us computers at
fully
one point in
digital.
time.
No,
You-
Yeah.
You can
I
download
asked for
digital
years
copies
ago.
onto your own device.
Yeah.
Right
That-
now,
That's, I don't, if that's, is that acceptable?
they're
don't know.
separate agencies, the city and
No,
the
no,
CRA.
no, I'm saying,
separate
is it
agencies.
acceptable for us to bring in personal devices
Oh,
and
sure.
pull up?
Sure, you
Okay.
can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
download it in advance, you don't need an internet connection.
Okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
because the Wi-Fi in here is
That's what I do.
super
Okay.
spotty. But the goal is to get you guys fully digital,
Yeah,
and that's sort
but
of,
still,
with
you
the
know,
budget issues, that sort of
No.
got set aside.
well, have them take a look at the cost of the paper.
I'm telling you.
I mean,
There's a lot of trees right
I
here.
appreciate the
Yeah.
front and back though. That does not go unnoticed.
Yeah.
And it's recycled paper, by the way, so.
Oh, good. Well, I'll leave this here. Then. Okay. Having covered everything, we'll go ahead and let's call for an adjournment.
So moved.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Really
guys.
do appreciate your time tonight.